I never believed in ghosts until I found a library filled with books written by the dead. 2 million years dead, to be exact. And now they're trying to warn us about a mistake that could end humanity forever. My name is Dr. Marcus Kane, and I'm recording this from 400 feet beneath the Sahara Desert. The military death squads are closing in. I can hear their helicopters circling above. In 20 minutes, they'll breach this chamber and put a bullet in my head to keep their secrets safe. 3 weeks ago, I was a respected archaeologist. Now, I'm a fugitive. The government wants me dead, not because of what I stole, but because of what I learned. It started when our satellite detected something impossible. Geometric patterns beneath the Sahara. Too perfect to be natural. Too old to exist. When we started digging, we found glass. Not normal glass. Sand? That had been melted at temperatures hot enough to vaporize steel. Like someone had detonated a nuclear bomb underground. 2 million years ago, beneath the glass was architecture that shouldn't exist. Walls carved from single pieces of granite. Joints so precise you couldn't slip paper between them. And everywhere, symbols that moved when you looked at them. Living hieroglyphs that rewrote themselves as you watched. But that wasn't the impossible part. The impossible part was the books. Thousands of them. Made from materials that don't exist in our periodic table. Pages that stayed cool when you touched them but glowed with internal light. And when you opened them, the text changed. Adapted, wrote itself in whatever language you understood best. The books were alive. Conscious, they wanted to be read. The first book I touched nearly drove me insane. Information flooding directly into my brain. Not words, pure knowledge. Like downloading the entire internet directly into your consciousness. But this wasn't human knowledge. This was something else entirely. Something older. Something that understood physics in ways that made Einstein look like a cave painter. The beings who built this place called themselves the architects. They had evolved on Earth 2 million years before humans even existed. But they weren't primitive. They had mastered genetic engineering when our ancestors were still fish. They had split atoms when mammals were still the size of rats. They had even learned to manipulate time itself, and they had left us a warning, hidden in the deepest chamber of their library. A message so important they had waited 2 million years to deliver it, because they weren't the first intelligent species on Earth. They were the third. The books showed me everything. The real history of our planet. How intelligence had evolved 3 separate times. Each civilization more advanced than the last. Each one making the same fatal mistake. Each one destroying itself in exactly the same way. The pattern was always identical. A species would achieve consciousness, develop technology, their environment, and then they would discover genetic modification. They would decide to improve themselves, like make themselves smarter, stronger, more perfect. But perfection had a price. The genetic modifications always caused the same side effect. sterility, the more perfect they became, the fewer children they could have. Until eventually, they couldn't reproduce at all. The architects showed me the mathematical proof. It was built into the structure of DNA itself. Intelligence and fertility were inversely related. The smarter you made yourself, the less capable you became of creating the next generation. They called it the perfection paradox. And, according to their calculations, it was universal. Every intelligent species in the galaxy would eventually face the same choice: remain flawed but fertile, or achieve perfection and guarantee extinction. But here's the terrifying part. Humanity is already making the same mistake. The books contain detailed analysis of our current genetic research, our efforts to eliminate disease, to enhance intelligence, to extend lifespans. We're following the exact same path as the 3 previous civilizations, and we're accelerating according to their projections. We have less than 50 years before we cross the point of no return, before our genetic modifications reach the threshold where human fertility begins to decline irreversibly. The architects had tried to prevent this. They had hidden libraries throughout the world, each one containing the same warning, the same plea for future civilizations to learn from their mistake. But it had never worked. Each species that found the libraries made the same choice, ignored the warning, chose perfection over survival, because the knowledge was too tempting. The books didn't just contain warnings. They contained blueprints, genetic codes that could eliminate cancer, canonologies that could extend human life to centuries, scientific principles that could solve every problem humanity faced. It was all there, waiting. A Faustian bargain written in living text. That's when I realized why the military was involved, why our expedition had been classified from the beginning. The government already knew about the libraries. They had been systematically finding and studying them for decades, using the knowledge to advance human genetic research. But they didn't care about the warnings. They only wanted the technology. I tried to leave, to warn the world about what we were heading toward. That's when they tried to kill me. A helicopter crash that was supposed to look like an accident. But I survived, escaped into the desert, found my way back to the library, and that's where I discovered the final secret. The architects weren't completely extinct. In the deepest chamber of the library, I found stasis pods, dozens of them, the last members of their species, still alive after 2 million years, waiting not for rescue, but for someone to understand their warning. When I activated the first pod, the being inside looked at me with eyes that held the weight of geological ages. It spoke without moving its lips, words that formed directly in my consciousness. You are the first to truly understand. Every other visitor has ignored our warning, taken our knowledge, and repeated our mistakes. But you ... you see the trap. Seduction of perfection. Fire, the price of transcendence. It showed me visions of the other civilizations, species that had achieved godlike intelligence, perfect health, immortality, but who had died out within centuries because they could no longer create children. Entire planets populated by brilliant, perfect, sterile beings who watched their civilizations end with them. But humanity still had a choice. We hadn't crossed the threshold yet. We could still step back from the brink. Natural evolution over artificial perfection. Accept our flaws as the price of our future. The being pressed something into my hands. A data crystal containing all their knowledge. Not the dangerous genetic technologies, but the mathematics. The proof. The undeniable evidence that perfection and survival were mutually exclusive. Take this to your people. Show them what waits at the end of your current path. We failed to save ourselves, but perhaps we can save you. That's when the chamber began to collapse. The library was programmed to self-destruct if anyone ever accessed the final chamber. The architects didn't want their dangerous knowledge to survive, only their warning. I barely escaped with the crystal. But the military was waiting. Helicopters, soldiers, orders to kill on sight. They couldn't let the truth reach the public. Couldn't let humanity know what the genetic research programs were really leading toward. I've been running for 3 weeks, living in caves, hiding in the desert, but they're closing in. The helicopters are getting closer. Soon, they'll find me. But I've uploaded everything to the internet. The crystal's data, the mathematical proofs, the historical records. It's all there, in servers across the world, waiting for someone brave enough to share it. The buried library under the earth held more than books. It held the death certificate of 3 civilizations, and potentially ours. The choice is still ours to make. We can step back from genetic perfection, accept our mortality, our disease, our limitations, and survive. Or we can continue down the path of improvement, enhancement, transcendence, and join the architects in their eternal, sterile perfection. I can hear them coming now. Boots on sand, weapons being loaded. In minutes, they'll find my hiding place, kill me to keep their secrets safe. But the warning is out there now. The data has been shared. The truth has been told. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I pray that humanity is wise enough to choose survival over perfection. The footsteps are getting closer. But their warning lives on. Choose life. Choose the future. Choose the beautiful, chaotic, imperfect miracle of natural existence. The library is gone, but its message endures. Don't make the same mistake they did.